session today, we're going to be talking about WordlyWise i3000 and our Quizlet partnership, and how that's one way in which educators can look at enhancing academic vocabulary outcomes with your students. So I will introduce myself on the next slide here. Let's get to the next slide. So my name is Peter Cleary. I work with school specialty instruction and intervention. My background has been in teaching and education for about 25 years now. I've been working with publishing industry for over 20 years, and really with a focus in the area of reading. Most of my work has been done in the area of reading, comprehension, vocabulary development. I've touched on math as well, but that really is where my strengths are. So that's a little bit about myself. And in terms of WordlyWise 3000, so just to give you a bit of context with that, so WordlyWise 3000 as an instructional tool has been in the marketplace for over 50, that's 50 years, which is really unprecedented in the publishing industry. It's been a program that's reached millions of students over those 50 years, and it's really all about providing a more direct, systematic approach to vocabulary development. One thing to note is today we are focused on WordlyWise i3000, and what that is the digital component or format of WordlyWise family, as we call it, WordlyWise 3000 family. So the focus is more on the digital today, but note that we do have print that's been around obviously a lot longer, and we do cover K to 12 right across the board in terms of levels with the print side of things. And then with WordlyWise i3000, note it is levels 2 through 12, and those are grade level equivalents, so grades 2 through 12. And that WordlyWise i3000 allows for differentiation within instruction. We have leveled passages for the reading comprehension component. I'll come back to that later. That's just a call out at this point. And as we all know, those of you who are working with students and teaching language arts and reading instruction and comprehension and all of that, there's a strong connection between the comprehension piece and the vocabulary piece. They're intertwined in terms of one's ability to grow and develop their comprehension capabilities. And that WordlyWise is really designed to help with that. It provides students with multiple exposures to the words for each lesson and level. They're done for the most part in context, so it's not isolated words, although we do touch on that at the beginning. And then it will deal with multiple meanings of words. So it's really taking this direct systematic approach to teaching vocabulary and having students engage with vocabulary. There's also a high engagement factor, especially with the i3000 version of WordlyWise. There's social sharing opportunities among students, and all these things they're designed to try and bring the student into the fold in terms of their learning and development. So that just gives you a bit of background on myself and what we mean when we're talking about WordlyWise. And now I am going to talk more specifically about WordlyWise i3000. That's the digital format. And I will be going in to show you this. I'm going to do a walkthrough, but this will sort of set the stage for you to get a better high-level understanding before I go in. So with WordlyWise, as I said, there were levels 2 through 12, grades 2 through 12 for the online version of it. And each level has anywhere between 15 and 20 lessons, and each lesson will have anywhere from 15 to 20 words in each lesson. And so you would assign a lesson depending on the level of the student. You would typically group your students by grade level, but it's not always the case. But for the most part, people do go by grade level. So you'll say you're in a grade 4 class, for example, and you want your students on level 4. So you could set up an entire class just for that, your whole class for grade 4. So once you've done that, and then the first thing that students will be engaged with is the word list, but asking them to rate their word knowledge. So you're going to just do a polling of your students, say, okay, who's seen this word before? Who knows what this word means? Do you really know what it means, and can you use it in a sentence? And again, I will come back to this as I show you this, so I don't need to go into too much detail. And that's really the instructional opportunity for you as instructor to see what are those maybe 3 to 5 words where you're seeing a lot of students saying, I've never seen this word before, or I think I've seen this word, but I don't know what it means. And that's the instructional opportunity to use that formative data to do some interactive work with your students, the instructional piece, right? So, what does this word mean? Can anyone use it in a sentence? Those are typically how people start. But then, talking about the word, what's a similar word? What might a synonym be, right? For example. So that's the instructional piece. And I do want to state that WordlyWise i3000 is designed more to be teacher involved. We're not just putting students on a computer and letting them go. Quite frankly, we've done that before in the past, and that worked, and that worked in a lot of settings, like with tutoring situations and some classroom settings where teachers didn't have the time to really get involved, and it did give them exposure to the words and the practice and reinforcement. But we've kind of much with the new release of i3000, which is to try to get the teacher more involved with the instructional component. So that all stems from the Rate Your Word knowledge. And then once the students have done that, and you've done that as a group, they will get the word list. Now that's very traditional, and this is everyone's familiar with that. Here's your word list. Here are the definitions, and it's a self-study opportunity. But this is the first connection we have with Quizlet, because part of our study sets with Quizlet connects at that point. So they go through the word list, look at the definitions. They can connect to dictionary.com. They can get the words read aloud through dictionary.com. But in the end, if they want to do their first attempts to practice and learn, they would go to Quizlet at this point. Again, I'll show you that in the program. Once they've done that, excuse me, then they will get into the practice and application activities in the program. And some of these relate to the social sharing opportunities where kids are posting their responses. And they can, once they posted, they can see other students' responses, and then they can interact socially along those lines. Then we get into some more vocabulary extension activities, writing connections. You want to get that multi-sensory piece in there with the tactile, with the writing. And then we get to what I call the heart and soul, which is the reading comprehension passages. So there's that every level, every lesson culminates in a reading comprehension passage. And this is where we can do differentiation because we have an on level passage and you have the option to assign students who are reading at a lower level a secondary passage, which is written at a lower lexile level. So say about a grade and a half, maybe 2 grade levels in terms of readability. It's the same story, same content, but a differentiated in terms of the Lexile level. So that's how it culminates. And then we come back to the Quizlet connection at the end. And then I'll talk about the partnership in a bit in terms of Quizlet and WordlyWise. So the Quizlet gaming activities, that's the last scene in the online version. Once the students have done all their work and done their learning and lessons, they'll come back to Quizlet for some gaming opportunities. So let's talk a bit about the partnership. How did this evolve? Why did it evolve? Well, quite frankly, what was happening was there were a lot of people using WordlyWise content via Quizlet, creating their own lessons and activities and so on. And when this came to our attention, that sort of prompted a discussion. We thought, well, we should talk with Quizlet, find out more about this and how it works. And long story short, we ended up partnering with Quizlet to create and provide official study sets and gaming activities for levels 2 through 12 of the WordlyWise content. Again, that's both for print. So if you're using the print workbook, there's an actual access code right in each of the workbooks that's unique to that student for them to connect to that level and those lessons for that particular student. And same with WordlyWise i3000, you also can make that connection with Quizlet through a unique code that we provide any of our customers who purchase the online version. So that's how the partnership evolved, was created, and that's where we are today. So what I'm going to do now, and I just need to go over and bring up my other screen here and bring it over. so you can see it, but I'm going to go in and just sort of walk you through this so you can get a better visual of that. So I'm logged into WordDevice i3000, and I have a lesson set up here in one of my classes. So if I click on this lesson, it brings up this dashboard. So I have, these are the students in the class, and then you'll see on the dashboard, and not to get into the weeds, but you can actually click on any particular activity and drill down to see specific students and how they're doing at that very granular level. But we don't have time to get into that today. So I'm just going to go to the actual flow of a WordDevice lesson in the i3000 platform. So this is the first step. So this is what we call scene one up here at the top, and there's all these different scenes. And so this is the rate your word knowledge one. So I'm in as a teacher. So as I'm going in here, I can see that the word here is benefit, that their students are looking at, and they're going to indicate whether they've seen this word before or not.
Hey, Peter, not to cut you off, but your screen isn't actually sharing with the audience.
Okay, thanks for letting me know that. You definitely need that screen. So let me go back to try a new share here. Okay. No, why is that not showing? So that's, let me know if you can see it, but I don't think I'm back to the PowerPoint here. Let me shrink that down. Are you able to see it now? Because
right now I see your desktop.
Okay, let me pull it over this way.
Still your desktop. There you go. There you go.
Oh yeah. Okay, there we go. Switch screens on me on my other screen now. Okay, fair enough. Okay, apologize about that. So this is the first scene for rate your word knowledge, and a teacher can go in here and actually see which students are responding in terms of them knowing or not knowing the word. This is that instructional opportunity I mentioned earlier to use the formative data. Right now, we can see most students haven't responded. 6 have yet to respond, but the one who's responded said, I think I know what this word means. So that's the first thing you would do, and the teacher should use that data to spend time working on the words where you see, if I scroll down, students are starting to say, you know what, I don't know what this word is. I've never seen this word before. So for example, dismay in this case. Now, once they've done that, they're going to get the word list. So I'm going to have to bring up the word list, and this is the traditional part. So the word definition, notice I can click on any word. I'm not going to do it because I don't want to risk losing the screen share, but it takes you to dictionary.com, and there's a read aloud function there. So students are going to work through this list, and then this is that first connection to Quizlet. So if I click on Quizlet, it takes me right over to the official study set and gaming activities. And I'm going to go into this a little later, so I'm going to come back to it, but you can see there are flashcards and different kinds of activities that are multisensory that they work on. They can test themselves before we get to those activities. But I'm not going to go into that yet. I'll come back to that once I get through a little bit more of this. So I need to get that out of the way. Oops. All right. Okay, so I need to close this out and then go back to my scenes. So I'll blow this up, go to scene 3, and I'll have to sort of pick up my pace a little bit here. But these are the different activities that students will engage with. So we've got an example, since we've only had one student respond. If I click on that one student, Tyler Baker, you'll see their actual responses. So you can click on individual students, or you can just generally see if there's a group of students, how they're doing with certain words. So I'm going to see, I can see that Tyler's struggling down here with this particular concept or word. So it gets a little granular in terms of the details that teachers can see. This is just another example of an activity where they're reading this sentences carefully and they're typing in the words into the spaces that are provided. So if again I click on Tyler, I can see which ones he got correct, and which ones he got incorrect. And you can do that for each of your students in your group. Again, I would just keep it at a higher level to see if there are a bunch of students struggling with any particular words, because you probably should review those with your students. Here's another example of a lesson applying meanings. So, choose the correct answer. Note there are multiple answers. So in this case, which of the following might fill someone with dismay? And here are the two correct answers: losing $10 or finding a staple in a tuna sandwich. So again, you can see which students are picking which answers for these. So teachers don't always have the time to do that. I'm being upfront about that, but suffice it to say that information is there if you had the time or want to dig a little deeper into overall student responses. Here's one we get into synonyms, for example, which two words are alike: benefit and help. And we can see in this case, Tyler got these both correct since he's the only one who's responded. Then we start getting into the social sharing part of the program. This activity is called illustrative vocabulary, and it's asking them to think about the word develop and what it means, and then they have an opportunity to either respond or post a picture, use clip art, or write something. And once they've created their response, so this is an example of what it could be: develop, a single house turning into a city. Once they post that, they're able to see other students posting, so they can socially share what they're doing. So that's illustrated vocabulary. And now we get to the comprehension piece. So scene 8 here. This is an example of a level 4, by the way, so grade 4. Notice here there's a primary passage and a secondary passage. So if I clicked on that, it would bring up the story, but I'm not going to do that because, again, I don't want to lose my screen with the multiple tabs. So the students are asked to read the passage and then answer some questions. So you can see here, how did Sequoia's invention benefit the Cherokee Nation, as for example. And you can manage the posts for the most part. In most cases, if you want to have them shared amongst the group, you can do that. That's the default. Or you can have it just shared with the teacher in some of the scenes as well. We do get that question a bit. Then we get into the other, working with the passage, and in each passage, all vocabulary words are used in context within those passages. And here's an example of a drag and drop activity where they're going to drag and drop the correct words into the fill in the blank, sort of like a close or a maze procedure. So again, reading comprehension, questions being asked, and then we go to the next scene, which is what we call vocabulary extension. And again, working on the word develop, which we covered in the scene with the illustrative vocabulary. And they want them to think about that word again. And with that in mind, what would you do if the teacher asked you to develop your writing? So they're going to give a written response in that case, which again can be socially shared with their peers. And then from there, the writing connection, is looking at creative writing. We give them a word list here of some of the words from the word list, and then an activity. So in this case, describe a fun project you've worked on at home or at school, and they're going to write something, but using as many of these words as they can in their response, again with the ability to share posting with other students. It's a rather quick run through, but just for the sake of time, because I do want to now get to the Quizlet piece, which is in the last scene. So we connect back to Quizlet. If I click on this, I'm going to bring you back to the Quizlet components and just show you what that looks like. So again, whether it's print or online for WordlyWise, everyone has access included to our official study sets and gaming activities for WordlyWise. So here's an example of the first activity, which is using flashcards. So they're going to get the definition: to help or be helpful, or an event to raise money. Okay, I think I know that word. I'm going to say benefit. So if I click on here, it flips the card. Okay, benefit, I got that one correct. Let's go to the next one: having no or missing, no missing parts. And I'm going to say, I think that's complete. So I got that one right. So They're just going to self-study. This is really study mode. Remember, this should be done early on in the process. I would be doing these activities back after scene two. Scene two is where they were first presented with the word list. So they're going to keep going through that at their own pace. So that's the flashcards. Then if I go to the learn activities here, so let's press any key to continue. So again, we're starting to see some overlap and repetition, multiple exposures, right? Having no missing parts or whole. So we know that one's complete. So if I click on that, it tells me I'm correct. I know this is hail, but I'm going to click on an incorrect response. If you get it incorrect, it gives the corrective feedback. So small lumps of frozen rain, that's hail. So there's always that corrective feedback in here as well. So these are self-study modes. By the way, we have a connection with Quizlet Teacher. Now that only comes with the print sets. If you buy classroom sets or refill sets, Quizlet Teacher is included with that, but it's not included in the i3000 version. And what that allows is teachers to be able to track and see metrics about how students are doing with their Quizlet activities. Okay, so let's go back here. Let's look at the next one in the writing connection. So this is again that multisensory, right? Missing, uh, having no missing parts complete. So I'm going to have to type that in and click my answer. And it tells me I got it correct. And then it'll show them. It tracks what they get correct and incorrect as they move through that process. So let's try another one. To stand in place. To stand for or in place of, I'm going to say represent. Okay, so I got that correct. Let's get one correct here. I know it's lack, but I'll say late. And you said that, and it's going to give the correct answer, and they need to continue along from that perspective. So you get the corrective feedback, you get the positive feedback as they get their correct responses. So you wouldn't hear it, but it just said to me utter. I can click this and it's saying utter to me. And so I type in UTTER and I got that. And this one's recommends. I won't type that. So this is the auditory visual connection, the spelling connection. So we're working in all these different modalities in the study mode. So we can consider these the study mode. And then when we get to the point where a student's, pretty comfortable and familiar with these words as they should be, having worked through the program, having worked on the Quizlet, additional reinforcement and practice through the study sets, now they can take a practice test here. So so I'm going to say dismay. So I'm going to type that in. And I would have to complete this whole thing. But if I go down to the end and check answers, it'll tell me what I got correct or incorrect. In this case, I typed dismay. No, the answer was E. So I'm not obviously going to complete the whole thing. So there's practice tests available. And then really post working with it, that's when we get into the gaming activities. So this is the first type of activities, and it's a drag and drop. So let's see, having no missing parts. So I'm going to drag complete down to there. Chief or main. So I'm going to say that one's, I think it's master, but sufficient. Well, remark, growth, shortage, lack. So I'm just going to complete this out. So one of them's hidden behind your chat, so I can't get to the last one there. But you get an idea of that activity. So very engaging for students. And then the secondary activity is called gravity. So I'll just get that started just to show you. I always put on easy because it's a little easier. So we're going to see the definition. So to be without, I remember that from before, that was lack. So if I get it correct, it just blows it away. And the next one comes down. So a comment is a remark. Got that one correct. And if I get this one incorrect, I'll just type anything. You got to keep typing. But eventually it gets down to the bottom and it will give the corrective response as well. So those are the gaming activities. Now I'm just going to go back because we're just getting close to the end, and hopefully I can bring my slides back here. Let's give that a try. So you're going to see that. Well, you're going to see it in that mode, just since we're getting down to the end. So, we're just we've had a lot of success with teachers using the program, and with the Quizlet application, we just did up a case study with Lorena Mott, who's a grade 4 elementary teacher in Massachusetts, and she had shared with us some of the engagement pieces of Quizlet that she'd had with her students. But she loves the fact that she says 100% of her class prefers doing homework with Quizlet. So you have that home school connection with Quizlet, and it's just added some great value from our perspective as the publisher. As I said, WordyWire's been out there for 50 years, but moving into that sort of more modern era, digital platform, and then connecting to Quizlet, which is one of the most downloaded applications out there and certainly used by millions of teachers around the world. So hence the partnership with Quizlet. And on that note, Chad, I know I've got a couple of minutes. I don't know if anyone had any questions pop up or any comments from your end.
Yeah, Peter, great. Thank you so much for that presentation. I'm going to read some of the questions from the Q&A box, and then you can just respond to them. And audience members, if you have any more to ask, feel free to drop them in the Q&A box. So, Peter, our first question is from Sherry. Does WordlyWise offer languages other than English?
No. So quite in a word, no. It is only in English right now.
Charlotte Williams asks, how does WordlyWise help students that speak English as a second language in high school? I have students that are ELL and IEP students that struggle with reading comprehension and answering questions.
Yeah, no, that is a good question for sure. And I would say it's a strong EL component because of the connections with the visuals that you get and the multisensory approach. However, having said that, if we get into high school EL and if we get into those more LD situations, you're probably looking at lowering and dropping the level at which you would either assign digitally or purchase for print. So it would, here's the rule I would use. What reading level are they on or at in terms of English? So if you have a grade 9 student who's really functioning at a grade 5 reading level, then I would be looking at probably the level 5 materials in WordlyWise. So you would adjust based on level. The differentiated passages, like I said, are written 1.5 roughly grade levels back, so that wouldn't be enough to accommodate for EL or LD in a high school setting. You're going to drop it back as much as you can without getting too low, basically.
Great. Fadak asks, my school uses WordlyWise. Do we automatically get the code to get to the lists on Quizlet?
So one point of clarification, that only aligns to the 4th edition of WordlyWise. And if you don't have that access, take a look at what edition you're using, because I'm going to guess we still sell a lot of 3rd edition, and that does not come with Quizlet. So just check your edition. It comes with 4th edition WordlyWise.
Great.
Also, you can always go onto WordlyWise, right, and buy buy a teacher pack and get the codes with it.
Yes, correct. So yeah, good point. So the eps.schoolspecialty.com website /i3000 for this specific, but if you just go onto our website, there's actually all the information there, lots of information, and you can actually purchase it right online, right on the website, or just contact us and we'd be happy to talk through it with you as well.